So I'm going to very briefly go over one of the most important culinary concepts, the concept of mise en place. Mise en place is a French term that translates out to put into place or everything in its place. But I usually explain it to my students as staying mentally and physically prepared to do your task. And in this case, we're talking about cooking. So when you practice mise en place, you plan and prepare beforehand, and you ensure that everything runs smoothly and efficiently, and that everything is the best quality. And this is extremely important when you are serving guests, maintaining consistency, and everything is coming out correctly. For example, if I have a cheeseburger and french fries, I don't want a half raw cheeseburger because it got on the plate when my french fries were done. And I don't want old and cold french fries because they sat on the plate waiting for my cheeseburger to come off of the grill when it was done. Making sure that everything is at the peak quality and the best possible on the plate is going to be really just coming down to timing and coming down to that organization. So when we think about mise en place, we're thinking about our work patterns, we're thinking about our ingredient list, we're thinking about making sure that the tools and the equipment that we need are right there at hand, that everything has been pre-organized before we really begin that cooking process. A lot of dishes go hot and fast, and you don't want to walk away from things that are cooking, both for quality food and then also for safety. So when we talk about mise en place has a variety of steps that really differ with what you're making. But if you were going to summarize them as somewhat consistency, the very first thing that you would really need to do is to read through that recipe to make sure that you know and understand all of the terms and all of the techniques that are mentioned. Make sure that you have on hand all of the ingredients and the equipment. You want to make sure that you are sanitizing yourself and your station before you start handling anything. This also would include food items or equipment items, making sure that they are washed and sanitized before use, before you start to cut into them. A beginner cook really needs to write a timeline. A professional chef or somebody that's more experienced, I generally don't sit down with very many recipes, and I generally don't write out a mental timeline. When I'm doing something very large in a large catering event, I do still write down a timeline and work backwards so that I have again, mentally preparing myself to keep myself on track, making sure that I know when everything needed to go in. So after I have sanitized everything, I have a little timeline, I have an idea of how things are going to flow. Then I begin to kind of get everything out. So I get my workstation set up, I get my tools out, my ingredients are out, everything's right out in front of me. So that way when I begin, I don't have to walk away. And this is very important in staying that mental and physical preparation. If my recipe calls for me to do things in advance, then that needs to be done. So if your recipe calls for julienne carrots or bâtonnet potatoes, then that needs to happen before you start the cooking process. Most recipes and most cooking can happen very quickly. And if you have food in the pan and you're still waiting for yourself or someone to cut food items up, then you're behind, and your food is going to end up overcooked by the time that those prep tasks are performed. So all of the prep needs to happen before the cooking starts. In addition, preheating and making sure things are very well preheated and preheated for a while before the cooking process starts. So again, our goal is to make sure that we're working quickly and that we have the highest quality of food or the highest quality product at the end. We also want to make sure that as we're going, that we are cleaning our station. So as you're done with items, clean and put things away. You have moments of time in cooking when you can stop and wash something, stop and refile ingredients away that you don't need anymore, and keep that station clean. Again, mentally preparing, keeping yourself mentally focused. And always at the end of preparing something, think back of what you could do better or how you could move more efficiently. You'll never get better if you aren't constantly thinking about and doing some self-evaluation. Be critical with yourself. It's okay. So again, read those directions, sanitize as you're going along. Make sure that everything's taken care of before the actual cooking starts. Dishwashing for mise en place is also a concept that I've learned in the culinary kitchen that helps me stay mentally and physically prepared. So I clean as I go, and that means that in little moments of time, I have one or two things. I just used a big bowl, like a big metal mixing bowl, for example. I stop and I clean that item right then and there. Typically in cooking, I don't have a sink full of cold, nasty dishwater just sitting there waiting for me. And so by cleaning as I go and washing a couple of items at a time, I always have clean things handy. So that could be a set of tongs because I touched something that was dirty. That could be a mixing bowl that I just used. And so I just wash two or three items, and then I never have that big stack of dishes. This technique is not for cleaning a huge stack of dishes. This is only for doing a couple of items as you move along. So the concept of mise en place is so important to most culinary professionals that it's very common to have some type of even a tattoo placed on their body. That's how important mise en place is. Mise en place is not, it's not just a thing that chefs do. It's what all successful people do. So when I think of mise en place and I think of mental preparation and I think of successful people, one way that I liken this to my students is think about a successful student in school. What are some things that that student might do that an unsuccessful student doesn't? One of the things is that they know what's going on in their classes. So they listen, they take notes, they keep a folder, they're organized. They usually organize their backpack the night before so that they don't wake up in the morning and try to scramble around. Maybe even laying out your clothes of what you're going to wear the night before. For virtual learning, making sure that your equipment is charged and everything's ready to go and you have all of your updates and you've kept that nice and clean. So just staying on top of it. People who mise en place, they know what's going on. They are not flustered, they are not overwhelmed, and they are focused. And that way everything runs smoothly. This is true for my husband when he is building furniture as a carpenter. This is true for me when I am sewing, and it is very true for a professional culinarian. So as a quick review, read and understand that recipe. Sanitize yourself and your workstation before and during. If you switch a task, clean your station and clean yourself and your equipment down. Organize your tools and equipment so that everything is handy right when you need it. Prepare tools and equipment. Does it need to be preheated? Prepare food items. Do all of your prep work beforehand. Restock and reorganize, put things away when you're done. Continued hand washing and sanitizing, station sanitizing, and then wash dishes and wash equipment and things as you go. Be efficient in your use of time. Truly, mise en place makes cooking and everything else in life a lot less of a chore. It makes things less overwhelming and less frustrating, and it'll keep you out of the weeds.